Welcome to the API Specification Conference 2020, and my talk about all of the interoperability, but none of the contact. My name is ErnstFriedman. I'm the Executive Director for the OpenTravel Alliance. OpenTravel is an open standard data messaging for the travel industry, where we work on enabling the future by driving the evolution and digital experience for consumers to build and maintain the most adoptable technology standards that enable interoperability driven by the travel community itself. What does it mean by we talk about the travel industry, and what does it include of today? When we talk about the travel industry in this call, it's going to be inclusive of very broad of both travel and tourism. So let's first take a quick history down to what is included in travel today. Way back almost 3,000 years ago, the first restaurants opened up in Hangzhou, China. Another 700 years later, rail passenger service starts in Liverpool. The first passenger cruise service ends up about 15 years later. Here in the United States, the first transcontinental railroad is finished, and the first U.S. national park opens in Yellowstone. And you can see a slow progression of additional transportation options as we get forward, all the way down to the first amusement park, Disneyland, in 1955, up into Richard Branson forming Virgin Galactic just about 15 years ago to start the travel into space. During that time, it was a long technology took a long time to become part of the regular travel industry. We're looking at roughly 70 years ago, all plane, hotel, cruise, train, bus, and other reservations were updated manually. About 15 years later, IBM comes along and teams up with American Airlines to launch the semi-automated business research environment company that is now known as Sabre. A few years later, nearly all airline systems use some sort of computer reservation system up until 1996, when the first online reservation booking website is launched. What does that mean from behind the scenes as an API conference? Here is a kind of an overview, a broad overview, generic look into how an individual, when they book travel, all of the steps that's necessarily to go through to get to a system to show its inventory and then back up again. The travel industry has been hindered by a few things that technology can address. Thermodynamics, just by the nature of airlines being limited by how many people can be carried and how quickly, limited distribution capabilities in the size of airports and how quickly hotels can be built. Government regulations, both to ensure competition, ensure safety, high operating costs such as fuel and person power, legacy systems and technology, and just good old-fashioned industry hubris, which has limited some success in adopting technology. Which brings us up to the current issue of the global pandemic that is COVID. When I first submitted this talk way back in the early part of the year, what would happen? There was expectations that the travel industry would hopefully return into the summer. Now that as we're fully into September, we realize that that was an optimistic view. So let's look at a quick timeline of what COVID has meant and how has it affected the industry and how quickly things came to pass from the first recorded cases believed to be happening in late 2019 to February 1st, where airlines cancel all flights. The Diamond Princess cruise ship was put under quarantine. And in the March 3rd, over 2 million TSA checkpoint travel numbers, meaning over 2 million people traveled through TSA checkpoints in the early March, which brings us into just about a month later, that number was down to 136 TSA checkpoint travel numbers, and leading to furloughs, bankruptcies, and other effects broadly to the travel industry. COVID cases, this has become regular knowledge at this point, but as we could see, the early hopes were led from a flattening in the springtime, which led to hopes for opening in summer, which led to a very large case uptakes in cases, leading to where we are today. Travel spending loss, this is a per month, as you can see, is just increasingly dire for the industry, leading to catastrophic effects and furloughs and other things that were mentioned earlier. According to WTTC, in 2019, the travel and tourism industry accounted for 1 out of every 10 employees and that same amount of global GDP. So the effects of the industry had far-reaching to cross the entire planet. Here's the review for the TSC screenings, but as we can see, the early drop that has led to, as it slowly increases, we're seeing optimistic return to travel. But what people are, where and what and how people are traveling has changed from this time last year. Travel spend is nowhere near where it was in the early part of this year, but we're seeing a similar uptick of not only people traveling, but the dollars spent while traveling. And this is all for the United States figures. Why, as people began to address new travel options, we're seeing new terms that pop up into the lexicon, from contactless delivery and staycations. And you can see the initial uptick in contactless delivery as people become more familiar and adjust their spending locally. The idea of where they're staying and how they will spend their travel dollars increased as the summer approached. As people became more familiar and more confident that they would be able to travel, they started to change their behaviors and where they would go. As popular options shifts and new ones emerge, what we saw was a drastic change from hotels going from staying in large buildings with a lot of staff to home rentals, when weekend getaways were, as people shifted to remote work opportunities, they started to book home rentals to take advantage of the opportunity of not being in their cities. Rideshare options plummet, while used car sales were on the uptick. RV and road trip searches go up considerably as people trade the exotic for the accessible. Travelers from population centers begin to limit their searches into roughly a 500-mile radius from their home, reflecting a push for the road trip options. And new opportunities and old come back in full force, from drive-in and now float-in movies make a resurgence, and alfresco dining becomes a lone option for people to dine in locally. This brings us to be what is going to be referred to as the new normal. For the most part, it's going to be an introduction of technology combining AI, biometrics, blockchain, and interoperability. The road to recovery is we have to ask ourselves what is getting in the way of innovation. From the items that we talked about before, is the limited distribution capabilities. You can't add airports and hotels very quickly, and people are moving away from those options and instead looking to more of the home rental approaches. Government regulations, from TSA security measures that were in place from 9/11 to advance it to changing and a moving goalposts with COVID, has made coming up with standards difficult. The high operating costs that we're seeing with online travel agents charging high fees for suppliers has cut into revenue streams. Legacy systems in hotels and others adopting computer reservation systems that were made not designed for hotels, vacation rentals, and others as they adopted from the airline industry. And what we talked about from hubris earlier is this has now become a commonplace, is where no one is letting strangers stay in their home, and no one is going to get in the car with one, as we see with Airbnb and Lyft and Uber. Lyft and Uber has taken a hit early on after seeing a massive insurgence across the board, while the vacation rentals, as we discussed, has come back up into favor as we move into the summertime. And as we talk about AI, what role AI play in in the future of the travel industry. AI can create the systems that can book COVID testing appointments in front with the accepted window of travel window, and flag your itinerary for travel spots and make your corporate travel with your company's and match your corporate travel with your company's COVID policy. Biometrics, which has now become clear over the summertime. My son at his summer camp was getting regular temperature checks as it becomes normal. Workplaces are instituting similar measures, and where factory workers will wear Bluetooth-enabled devices to buzz when they're getting within 6 feet of their coworkers, and when they get regular testing, can be flagged before entering the factory floor that they don't meet their particular location's quality standards. Touchless service like this personal device, the hub of transactions from check-in to payment to entry, already seeing an insurgence, an uptick with hotel check-in and airlines. We're seeing it more with people not being interested in touching third-party devices when they already have that capability in their hands. Blockchain technology is going to be the most revolutionary change, but also the most difficult to adopt. The blockchain will allow for sharing of health, proximity, and location data that respects the privacy and security of individuals, while also protecting those around them. Interoperability, what it means is the push for keeping everything working together. And this is where OpenTravel comes in for the main part. As we talk about interoperability is from we want different kinds of systems being able to talk to each other, where manufacturers are able to share systems quickly and easily. This will expand markets, reduce costs, and allow integrations between products. It's also a business opportunity, improving the customer experience and enhanced bookings. To bring this all together for the API, the solution to be effective needs to be open. A return to the norm means a reduction in reintroduction of a seamless experience or as close to possible. Physical security restrictions have already clogged throughput at airports and events, and this is all before COVID. Data needs to be shareable between events, workspaces, airports, car rentals, hotels, office space, and others to make it an easy transition from point A to point B, and allow the creation of credentials to be made at the time of booking, and to move to the contactless experience will pre-order of food and other items that can be delivered directly to travelers in the safest way possible. So there, I'd like to open up to floor to talk about, for people with their experiences, what they see in the way of innovation. I know that we have people with expertise in airlines and others to talk about where they see the next innovation of travel in the API space. So I'd like to leave it open to the floor and in the chat for anyone to talk about how they see technology and what are the hurdles for us going forward. Stu, I don't know if you have any insights you want to add.
Sure, I'll get it started. My name is Stu Waldron. I've been in the travel industry for 43 years through much of the changes Jeff talked about, starting in the late 70s. And one of the challenges applicable here is the move towards personalization. So people want to get to experience-based travel, destination-based travel, and as Jeff also touched on, getting into all types of new content. There's many more hotel rooms that are not in the major hotel chains. There's tour operators, all kinds of activities to pull together. So that's one of the interesting and major challenges coming before us. The major distribution companies today struggle with it where they are today, connecting 450 airlines around the world, for example. But that's because while many of them claim to use standards, they're all very different, which raises the cost of acquiring their products and distributing their products through all your online channels and travel agencies and everywhere else. So as we go forward, if we really want experience-based travel, to say, I want to go do something rather than I'm just looking for a flight. I want to stay in a region, whether not just looking for a hotel, and being able to market and retail based on that, while some of our newer technology platforms have excellent search engines to do relevancy-based scoring. None of them is capable of pulling together all the attributes of a trip. So one of the things we're talking about OpenTravel is how we're facilitating getting better APIs out there faster, but also how we handle this coming complexity to assemble all types of content and account for desires of personalization to make sure this isn't a trip offering relevant to the actual person. So hopefully that's just a quick view of there's immense amount of interesting work to do and complexity coming up, but we believe standards, across the travel verticals is the way to approach this, and it's all very doable.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to bring up about the personalization as COVID is revealed that there is workplace policies. There's not only corporate travel policies about which individual at what level in the company can purchase which flight at what cost, but also who can enter, the number of people that are currently in the building. It's Google, Facebook, and other companies have said there will be no people in the office until 2021, while we see with other companies such as Apple is pushing its employees or creating a system to allow their employees to go back as soon as they can, because they value a more in-person environment and the work from home doesn't fit with their specific culture. So how do we blend the opportunities of taking the long distance travel, what we learn, also to the near travel as well? So anyone else on the call? I know that Joe, if you want to talk, go ahead,
Jeff,
please.
I was gonna just chime in. Basically, I just wanted to underscore your your basic premise about the whole contactless experience, and I wanted to say, that whole initiative was already set in motion even prior to the current COVID crisis. Um, there's been an industry initiative around this concept called One ID, which really speaks to the frustrations of the traveling public. For instance, if you're on an international flight, there are multiple points where you'll have to show your passport and have some kind of exchange with some multiple agents or more. And so and to make that whole process more seamless, there's been this whole idea of One ID. If I prove my authenticity or who I am at one point, that fact should be able to be carried forward to all the other points wherever I need to be authenticated. And so that whole initiative was set in motion even prior to the whole crisis. And so this whole idea of contactless travel is gonna, the current crisis is just gonna accelerate that. So I just want to state that, and so that we should be mindful as we are designing our APIs, that this initiative is gonna continue to develop and grow in magnitude even more.
Kellen, do you have anything to add to the conversation, or at least want to talk about your perspective in the API space? To further advance the conversation, Joe, I think you bring up a good point about what has already been in place, and people who've traveled internationally have seen biometric stands at through customs, and if you've traveled before and after, there's a drastic increase in the throughput, or at least the ability to move one line. People have the documentation faster than others. But I think it's also, as people begin to expect that experience in the same way that retail has changed with Amazon and Google searches, where people are expecting to get what they want in a personalized search results. They're expecting to see similar expectations is that movement through the airport. Expect to see the same thing at car rental and hotels, which of course is already coming to pass. I know that the Clear, the company that does early vetting of travelers, is introducing or has already introduced the same system for car rentals, where you can just jump in a car and get a facial scan and move and continue on your way. So your ability to preload and share your personal identification, your driver's license, your insurance information, and other things that would be necessary for a car to quickly move you through to the next one. And then also moving that for those who have used a Zipcar or other car sharing type opportunities, where there's vehicles that aren't necessarily in a single central location, your ability to access a vehicle and drive it, knowing that you're already pre-vetted to take advantage of those, is going to move forward with the people's expectations. And I think making the larger travel industry, I believe the term is seamless, is your ability to move quickly from point A to point B, is going to become a larger expectation as more barriers are introduced. And I think as we've seen with the response to COVID, that events will happen that will introduce new friction to the travel space, and getting people to move from point A to point B. So a system has to be flexible enough to handle whatever the changes are. Today, it's temperature scans. In the years ahead, there might be another issue that means, to be checked with pupil dilation or other different biometrics. So it's bringing that all together is helpful to have a system that is flexible to handle that, and a standard that is open to be adopted.
Just jumping in, the other thing that the same technology facilitates is if you wanted in an automated way to bring a complete journey together as a single offering, the normal air, car, hotel, but tour operators, anything else, being on the same page on personal identity is absolutely critical to personalization. So that the traveler doesn't have to authenticate with 4 or 5 providers in the context of a trip. They authenticate and identify themselves once, whether it's the use of wallets or other things, is what we as an industry have to agree on. So yes, common use of facial recognition of airline gates is problems being solved now, but then it goes further across the ecosystem that we all know we're talking about the same John Smith who lives on Peachtree Street in Atlanta.
I was I had a conversation with a company that was working with access and related to South by Southwest, and so how can you authenticate an individual to make sure that they are supposed to be in a hotel, especially late at night, where you have groups coming in and out and security becomes problematic. So how can you use the same information either attached to a mobile phone or to some kind of recognition, some biometric recognition, so that people, they know that they are supposed to be in an area. You can have separate public space and non-public space for large gatherings, and bringing that same technology to museums and others where it's easy access and flow through different groups, and you can allow for alerting and setting up people so then they have limited access. And now that reservations, down to the point where I had to book a reservation to get my bike fixed at a local place at the very start of COVID. So as that gets introduced to other aspects of travel and daily life, the ability to connect with people so that as soon as one person leaves, somebody else can come back in. We are out of time. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time and joining in this conversation. If you have any additional questions, I would love to hang out and chat at the rest of the conference. But enjoy your time here, and thank you for your time at ASC 2020. Have a great day.